it's,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
I think it's just fear and differences
Yeah.
and
I'm gonna keep
people,
all this together so you don't
fear of the unknown.
forget it.
I don't believe African American people will always be strangers
Okay.
in this foreign land
I'm gonna pull you back.
of America.
But why is that?
Based on fear, we're not knowing white people and white people not knowing us. And it has a lot to do with the Willie Lynch mentality
Push it back just a little bit.
of people,
Here.
and their preconceived notions about African Americans. For example, I have an intern. So she says to me, she's Orthodox Jew. She says to me, Miss Bowman, you're just so nice. What were you expecting me to do? I mean, I just was blown away. You're just so nice to us, Miss. You're just nice to me, Miss Bowman. Well, what are you expecting me to do?
Yeah.
You're interning me, so I have to lead by example. Now, I was blown away by that. But then I looked at it as her inexperience working with African American people. Because as an Orthodox Jew, you're in your own sheltered community, not knowing anything else about others around you. And then she goes to places that I would never go
Yeah.
as an African American female. She does things out of curiosity, which could really endanger her life. And I keep telling you, you better not do that. I don't think you should do that. So this we're dealing with, but there's this preconceived notion that I'm a certain way. Surprisingly, when I tell people my great-grandmother graduated from Bluefield State Teachers College. Are you serious? You're black, you went to college, but I'm like the fourth generation of college graduates. My niece will be the fifth, at least that I know of. Prior to that, my great-grandmother's parents went to graduate from high school.
Yeah.
This is the mindset of our people, that we're not educated. But that's not true.
Right.
But nobody,
And so to that point, if you want to join them, because I'm going to move it over here. One of the questions. Oh, sorry. Well, I'm recording too.
Really close. As close as possible, because I can get everybody.
I'm recording. You're recording. See? He's formal. I'm informal. One of the question when Gary has the camera set up, that the film addresses indirectly, but not as much directly, is the idea of systemic racism. There's individual, like you said, like the person to person, but the systemic. Why is it that the incarceration rate for black males is quadruple what it is for white males? Why are schools as more segregated today than they were in 1954? Why do we still continue to have laws, policies, unconscious practices in place that we pretend were eradicated in 1954 or 1964? Those things are still with us, and how do we as individuals confront a system of racism that is still with us today, considering how much you have already lived through, the way it was and the way the system was? Like, you had laws, you had rules, you had signs that said this or said that. And today we don't have the signs, but we still have the same outcome. How do we tackle that? It's invisible, but it's still pervasive. So what do we do with the invisibility of continued racism?
Could I start out by saying, in terms of why the crime rate among the blacks is so high, maybe you know or you don't know that it's pure economics. And by that, I mean that you've got people who want to spend money to build jails. And the reason for that, because it's economics is involved. What we need to do is, number one, we need to put skills back into schools, such as carpentry and plumbing, automobile mechanics, and that type of thing, to give that everybody's not academic. People have skills. People want to do things with their hands. A lot of our schools now have eliminated those kinds of programs from the school. And then you have people who want to build jails because is economics for them. So that until we find jobs and training for these young people on the street, I think we're going to continue to have these kinds of problems.
And in addition to that, my mother always said a good education is the key to a successful life. That's it. Unless you have an education of some sort, whether it's academic or home ec or whatever, but it has to be trained, just as you were saying, that you have a quality to present a skill that can be purchased and you can get your salary. Now, I wanted to add something else about staff. I think somebody mentioned that we have to improve the staff in our schools. Now, when integration came in 1954, Maryland decided to integrate at the staff level first. So therefore, they had to find, they gave black people, went to the black schools, asked those 20 best teachers, black teachers in the black schools, if they would take $500 and transfer and go to a white school. And some of them did, and most of them didn't. Now, let's say 20 black teachers decided to go to a white school. What did that do? That left 20 vacancies, didn't it? 20 vacancies from best teachers to a vacancy. Now, how are they going to fill those vacancies? With white people. I didn't say white educators. I said white people. So, as a result of that, in my experience in education, I was promoted to a curriculum specialist. And my job was to go around to these vacant places where these white people were and teach them how to teach. Now that was the beginning, to me, of the downfall of black education. Now, I know one lady that I was working with, she said, how did you get educated? And just as somebody was saying, this surprise, to know that we are educated, you know. But my mother always said, you have to be twice as good anyway. So that happened. Now, another person that I was helping said, I asked her, why did you decide to become a teacher? Oh, she said, I have an empty nest. Oh, is that a qualification for being a good teacher? But anyway, it was my job to help her to do the best she could do in these vacant spots. Now, in some of these schools now, and I think this one might be an example, of foreign people who come to black schools. Now, and the principal now, I must say this, the principal is responsible for his or her school. Excuses for bad behavior in a school, I look at the principal. So when I see great behavior, I look at the principal. So that's what I'm saying. I'll stop right there at this point. But those are a couple of things. You've got to have good staff, and you've got to have a good leader.
And you know, I even think about my, you know, it's really intergenerational. Growing up, our teachers were God-fearing, and most of them, especially in elementary school, looked like me, and we could relate. But when I went to middle school, which was then the old Rockland, West Baltimore Middle School, they changed the name because of racial tension that was there. That was my first encounter of going to school with white people. But in my black elementary school, we had one white teacher who hated us. And it was obvious. And I'm the person who probably said some things that could cause me, back in the day you had to stay after school. I stayed after school a lot because I knew she didn't like us. And I would challenge her because I could see how she treated my friends, even treated me. And of course my father was like, oh, she's at it again. But they supported me. They could pick up things. You know when your child is being ostracized or being picked on. And my parents challenged her. Went to middle school, we dealt with racial tension among our peers. Getting off the bus, and you hearing your peers saying, I'm going in the store when the niggas get out. Then you go to high school, and of course I went to Western High School, standing on the corner in the morning, They're the niggers on the bus stop, throwing things at us. This was in the 80s. Standing on the bus stop of 41st Street and Falls Road and being thrown lemons at you or eggs at you. And you're just standing there. You go into the school, you experience racism, getting the grades that you didn't deserve. You know you worked hard to get an A, you get a C, you see all those kinds of things. Then you go to college, Towson State University, experience the same thing. And then when I went to Johns Hopkins, we had a professor who said, we were part of a special program cohort from Baltimore City School, went in the right way at the criteria to get into Johns Hopkins. But we have a professor who says, oh, I've never seen, she caught herself. What she really wanted to say, I've never seen as many black people in this room like this. But she didn't say it. But you can feel the tension, you know. It's just really fear. Are we ever going to change it? I don't believe so. Because there are also black racists who have their misconceived notions about others. And I shared with you the intern, oh, you're so nice to me. But I had my thoughts about her also. But then I realized that instead of being judgmental of her, I see an Orthodox young lady whose parents in Israel and not knowing about the African American culture. But I'm learning from her as she's learning from me. But as a result, we do have a very good relationship because we have these politically correct conversations. What should I call you? You call me African American. I'm not black. Black is a color, a crayon color. I'm not a thing. I'm a person. Italian Americans, Irish Americans, I would prefer to be called an African American.
You said something that really stood out for me in your experiences and the way that you were mistreated over and over and over again by, racist behavior. And yet when we talk about how to change things, it seems like the onus for change keeps going back onto the shoulders of African Americans themselves, that it's about having to be, as Dr. Pratt said, twice as good and, staying good in school and working hard. And the expectation seems to keep falling back on the shoulders of those who are on the receiving end of racist behavior instead of, turning towards, whiteness and demanding that change, that, we keep saying that children aren't working hard enough, that they're not behaving well enough, and yet it seems like the system around them is setting them up for failure even when they do their best.
Let me explain to you. I was a guidance counselor at Western High School for 2 years. I had a student named Abigail who was in a motorized wheelchair, lived in Hamden, okay? Abby was very nasty and disrespectful to her African-American aide. She would say, go in there and tell her I do this. Go in there. I said, wait a minute, stop. You are going to stop coming to see me. She's going to start coming to see me. So I told Abby, I said, you're going to, not, she's not coming, you're coming. So she would bring her wheelchair, her mobilized scooter. I said, you park that mobilized scooter, and outside my office, you walk into my office and ask me anything you have, you want to know. So she started doing that. But she had these preconceived notions about me being our counselor, African American, etc. So the beautiful thing about it is, I said, Abby, you will start walking. So I would see her walking down the hall every now and then. So the interesting thing about, we developed a relationship with Abby, with her mother and her father, straight up from Hamden. Hamden was the area where they were throwing eggs and all that stuff at us. Black people don't go to Hamden. You don't go to Glen Burnie. There's certain places you do not go. Hollandtown, you're in trouble if you go there. Things have changed, but just the racial tension in the atmosphere. So unfortunately, Abby died of a genetic disease. Her mother called her English teacher, said, find Miss Bowman wherever she is. The day of the massacre in Charlottesville, I was at her funeral speaking over her urn. I did not do that because it was a level of God consciousness. I had to do it. This lady's child died. I didn't even look at the race because the child developed a relationship, and she loved me after I had to explain to her who I was, and she felt comfortable with me. So I had to go speak over this child's urn. And in the midst of the racial tension that was happening in Virginia, the massacre, then you had Trump signs, and you know, you going in there and you knew the racial tension was there. I'm pretty sure the pastor, you know, was like, well, who is this? And I'm the only one there. But at the request of the mother, I had to go say something about the child. But I felt humbled and honored that she would have me to speak about her child and my experiences with her, because I felt sorry for the parents. But our relationship has changed, and you don't feel the racial tension when I talk with her mother or father. So racism